welcome and thank you for joining our Music for Global Change broadcast with founder and music ambassador Skyler Jett and presenter Tom Bryant and Ryan Shuchuk. And our special guest today is Pat Melfi. Well, welcome to the show, Pat Melfi. You are an international marketing manager nominated for Promoter of the Year 5 times and winning it on several occasions. Responsible for managing and promoting artists and touring concerts for Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers, The Who, and the Eagles, to name just a few. You worked on a number of television and radio commercials and jingles for well-known companies such as Burger King and Xerox. You're also the founder of MuzArt World Foundation and business partner for Conscious Music Entertainment. So welcome to the show, and please tell us more.
I'm rolling out there with Leon Patillo from Santana, and we're coming with a song called United We Stand.
Okay.
And we just finished up with a single called We Will Rise, which we were quite surprised did so good. We donated all the proceeds to the displaced children in Ukraine. And we charted it out, got it up to number 11 on the charts. We were excited about that.
Yeah.
That's been pretty much our activity, and staying healthy. I had a little heart scare here a couple of months back.
Me too.
Yeah. Did you? You too?
I had a heart attack December 17th.
Oh man. Well,
I was in the hospital for 6 days, had surgery, the whole gamut.
Well, it wasn't quite that dramatic for me. I'm sorry to hear that about you, but I went in for a colonoscopy, and
yeah.
And this machine kept going off, and I asked the lady, I said, "What's that noise?" And she said, "That's your heart rate." And I said, "Well, why does that thing keep buzzing around like that?" She said, "Well, your heart rate's pretty low." And I said, "Okay, is that something to be worried about?" She goes, "Yeah, at 47." She goes, "I think that'd be something to worry about. With your family's history, I think we should probably check that out." And I said, "Okay." So thank God for a colonoscopy.
Yeah, they found it through that, right?
They found it through that process,
Yeah, they found out I was a diabetic through my having a heart attack. I never knew that, right?
Right, Well, I look at it like this, it was a scare to let you know that, we're fragile and that the Lord can call at any minute,
That's right.
And I look at it like, if you wanted to take me home at that time, he would have taken me.
That's right. But you can't keep a good man down.
Yeah, well, there's that, right? I figured he still had some more work for me to do down here,
That's right. That's right.
Over my years in the business, I've learned that he's the master of cold calls. He doesn't pick up the phone and say, "I'll pick you up at noon." He just shows up and says, "Get in the car."
See what I'm saying? And man,
So what have you been doing musically? Tell me more.
Me?
Yeah, you.
Man, this interview is about you, man.
Turning it around. Turning it around on you.
Flipped it.
That's been one of those things that I've always had to deal with. I've always been in the back office. And I've always told people like Skyler and other folks in my world that it's not my audience. I'll hang out back here and y'all do what you do up there on the stage, because without you, we don't have a business.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the record industry has lost track of that idea.
Oh, it's gone.
Totally gone. It's crazy.
It's gone. But what's 8 billion people on the planet, right?
Right.
Now you just got to go find your own audience, right?
Well, that's it, and there is an audience. If you've got a good message, there's always an audience. You know how that works.
That's right.
It's just it's identifying with it and trying to, trying to connect the dots. There's new platforms out there that, I got TikTok this and YouTube that and Facebook this and, and it's hard to get a handle on that, because I'm the old guy. I'm the guy that said, "Hey, Skyler, I need you to get out there on the road. I got 500 albums in your trunk. There's a couple 15 grand in there. Make sure the guys are playing your music," right?
Yeah, man. It's amazing, man. Tom, you got a question?
Yeah, I have. Well, it's a biggie. I read from your details you were the former vice president at MCA Records, or you were formerly, and at the time when We Are the World was produced. Tell me what that was like. Well, how did that come about?
Well, my job in that project with Ken, well, it was obviously it's Ken's brainchild, We Are the World. And my job was to negotiate all the contracts because, if you're a recording artist, you know that if you're under contract to a specific label that you're not allowed to record for another, company.
Oh, wow.
So, Michael Jackson had moved on to the Sony label out of the Motown world, and Lionel was still on Motown, and so was Stevie, and so was Diana Ross. So I negotiated all the contracts on the backside of the deal so that everybody could mutually agree on what kind of terms there would be for Sony to, work with as far as putting out a message like that, a global message like that. And I work with Ken quite a bit in my career. In fact, most of my management, skills that I've gotten, I learned from him. And he was a great mentor to me. He passed away recently, just 3 or 4 months ago.
Yeah.
And so, at this stage of the game, all the bands that he managed, I was the promoter on, so I promoted Kenny and Lionel Richie and some of the other bands that were involved. And then, of course, before I had anything to do with Ken, I had Tom Petty's piece. I grew up with those kids in the studio. And at some point in time, the drummer and the percussionist and I went off and started our own concert production company. And that's how I met all those guys with, Bob Seger and Jackson Brown and the Eagles. I met them all through Tom. So that's kind of how that was. But probably We Are the World was, it's been attempted several times since then, and kind of like Woodstock, you just can't do it,
Right.
Kind of a one-off.
Yeah.
There's the one day, the Lord comes down and says, this is what you're going to do. You're going to do it one time. And then 25 guys like me come together and say, hey, let's see if we can do that again, and it's never the same. I remember JD Seraphine coming to me, one of the kids from Chicago's family, and they came down and said, hey, we want to do this Woodstock too. And I said, yeah, well, I'd like to just get back to the real Woodstock where, where the messages was pure, it was pure, and it was just, we're just living in a different world.
That's right.
We're in such a different world now. And I find, I try to stay tuned, to the greatness of life and the greatness of what we have, here, and what God has given us to work with, and try to tune out the blues. I really do try to tune it out. But, I'm wondering at this stage of the game, what we can do to unite people. I was going to be coming to you anyway, Skyler, because I've always told you that, I write, as you know, and I've never really valued that as a talent of my own. But recently, and throughout my whole life, I've always slept with a pad next to my bed because God just seemed to like waking me up at 2:00 in the morning. I'd be having conversations with him, going like, "Hey, man, lighten up, man. I just got to bed." And he's like, "Wake up! I got something I want to say." And so recently, I wrote down, because of all the chaos that was going on in the world, I was writing down this. I woke up at 2:30. And I wrote, we are one, we are love, we are all the same from where we came. And I put my freaking pen down, went back to sleep. And the next morning I woke up and, I had my morning prayer ritual that I do. And I started having this conversation. And we're like, what do you want, man? We Are the World wasn't enough, and Hands Across America wasn't enough. We Are, Hope wasn't enough. You want something else called We Are One. What's up with that? And so, I started moving around. I found Mike Panera. You probably know Mike from Iron Butterfly.
Okay.
And what's the other one he was with? I can't remember. He had the song Ride, Captain Ride. Oh, Blues Image. So anyway, ran across him, and he said, dude, those are some really great words for the world to hear right now. And I said, well, I want to do We Are the World. I want to get a couple of different people that are good writers that can expand on that. I mean, that's the chorus. That's exactly what it is. You repeat it twice and it's a great chorus, And I said, and I want it to be sort of a happy feeling, We Are the World was real serious, I want this to be more like reggae, happy kind of like thing.
Okay.
Where we're all like, just thinking about, reggae music just has a way of making you feel happy. I don't care who you are. I don't care what you know about music, reggae, just there's something there that just makes it work for everybody, no matter who you are.
Okay.
And so I was thinking, this whole jargon that's going on across the world about we're Catholic, we're Mormon, we're white, we're black, we're green, we're yellow, we're all this stuff, and I thought, what we really are is we're human.
That's right.
And then somebody comes along and puts all this stuff on us, they label all these things and we get caught up in it all. And I don't know about you, but I get caught up with people that are unaccountable, people that they say what they're going to do and they do something different.
That's right.
It drives me crazy. And, and it's my lot in life. It's what I work on, because I don't feel that God gave me the ability to judge that or to even solve that case for him. But at the same time, I'm sure he didn't want me to just sit around and let it happen either,
Right.
So I feel like God has entrusted us with his most significant weapon, and that's music. Because music speaks in every language. It speaks to every race, creed, and color. It doesn't matter whether you're happy or sad. It doesn't matter whether we're at peace or we're at war. It has an ability to speak to the heart.
That's right.
And I feel like we're at a place where we need to come with a message like that. We're all one. It doesn't matter where we came from. It doesn't matter what our upbringing is. Zip code doesn't matter anymore.
Right.
I mean, we need to do something to unite people again.
Mm-hmm.
And we have to, in my opinion, stop being lazy about it, because politicians ain't going to do it. They're in it for their own stuff, whatever that is, and I don't know what it's like over where you're at in England, but probably the same,
Oh, everywhere, man.
Yeah. So, it's a dangerous subject, but, I think if we come with a message of oneness, I think it would be received right now in a big way.
Well, like you said, it's needed, right?
Yeah.
And you can change the whole attitude of a room by coming in doing something positive.
Exactly. People
are tired of bad news, and let's give bad news some competition.
Well, that's exactly right. And people look at me and they go like, dude, like I would have never expected that from you. And I said, why is that? Because, it's like I've always fought the whole writing thing.
Yeah.
I left that to you, that was your job. That's what musicians do. And
but now you don't get to become, the vice president of a major label like that, and you don't love music enough to want to dabble in it, right?
Well, and that's what I did. I dabbled in it. You know what? When I was a kid, we didn't have music. In my family, my mom was, as much as I love that lady, she had some troubles in her life. And, when she met my dad, and I learned this when I was 27, by then I was already working at MCA Records. This is how bad the story was for her. She met my dad in 1951. And then in 1952, I was born.
Okay.
And there was a very short distance in there. And strangely enough, when I moved to Utah, I met some friends that, they're all into genealogy and family history and all that stuff. And I started doing some homework in that area. And I learned that there was like 4 months short of period of time between the time my mother met my dad and married him and I was born. I was like, something's not jiving. So I went after it. And I remember at 27 years old, this gal came to me. She was in the streets of LA. Only in LA can you see something like this. This girl comes up. She's got like 3 colors of hair. She's got a choke chain around her neck, and her boyfriend's leading her around on a leash.
Oh, Lord.
And she walks up in front of me and tells me how I'm wasting my life. And I'm like, being the Christian boy, I'm like thinking, man, I don't know if I want to respond to that. But, I felt inside in my heart, I was like, talk about who's wasting your life, right?
Yeah.
but she said, she goes, God's really mad at you. And I said, really? I said, what for? He said, well, because you're one of the world's greatest musicians and you're just sitting here wasting time.
How about that?
I was like, what? I said, I don't even play an instrument, lady. I don't even know what you're talking about. I was working in the mail department at MCA at that time in my life. And so I was with a bunch of friends that come in from New York. They wanted to go see Hollywood. That's what we got to see. And so I kind of walked away from her, and she came walking up behind me and put her hand on my shoulder. And she said, you should consider not walking away from me when I'm talking to you.
Wow.
And I was like, okay. I said, I don't really know what to say about that, but if you have something you want to say, you might as well say it, because I'm going to go on with my friends here and tour the rest of Hollywood. Right. And she said, well, she goes, there's going to be this lady. She's going to be like, maybe like 45, 50 years old.
Your camera's going, Pat.
Yeah. Kind of. Oh, is that you or me?
Yes, your camera's gone.
It is?
It turned off.
How did that happen?
I don't know.
Oh, there it is.
Yeah, there you go.
I don't even know what happened there. But anyway, so she says to me, she says, there'll be this lady. She's going to be like 50, maybe 45, 50 years old. She'll be kind of like a mom, but not your mom. She's going to come in. She's going to come into your life and tell you how, pretty much where the bear shits. I was like, oh, okay. So off I went, and I said, well, I'll keep my eye open for her. And I didn't even think about it. I went back, we were doing whatever we were doing. And then I was talking to my mom, and I mentioned that to my mom, that had happened. And she said, well, you should probably call Peggy and talk to her about that. Peggy was her best friend. Yeah. I didn't really connect it mom-like, but not mom. I didn't make that connection. But then I called her and I told her my story, and she said, well, Fred and I, her husband, we were talking about this just last week, and we were thinking that you should have Christina's grand piano. So Christina was my childhood sweetheart, their daughter, and she had been killed in a car accident by a drunk driver. And I was like, I was spooked by that. I was like, I don't know if I even want to touch that piano, And then she said, well, you got a couple of conditions. And I said, what's that? She goes, you have to write. You have to promise that you'll bring it back if you ever outgrow it. And you have to go get it. I said, oh, well, where is it? It's in Palos Verdes. And I was in San Diego.
Oh, wow.
And so she was saying, gave me the address to where it was at their house in Palos Verdes. And so I'm telling this story to Paul Rogers, Paul, right, from Bad Company.
Okay.
And he's a good friend. And he says, so where's the piano? I said, well, it's in Palos Verdes. He goes, no, well, I get that, but where? I said, what, you mean like the address? And he goes, yeah. So I gave him the address. I don't know why he wanted it. He said, what are you doing right now? I said, I'm just getting ready to go out to lunch. He said, well, how about if I fly down there and get you? I'll be down there in an hour. And I said,
fly down there?
Yeah, he's got to fly down there. He's got a jet.
Okay, there you go.
Ad company jet, So he comes down, and he's got these two bruisers with him. I mean, these are like big burly dudes. They're like all tattooed up. And I'm like, you're going to give him the keys to your car, and you're going to give this guy the keys to your house. And I'm like, and I'm going to do that. Why? And he said, well, because we have to go to the Grammy Award show tomorrow, remember? I said, yeah. He said, well, we're going to fly you back. This guy is going to drive your car up, so you have a car back for tomorrow when you want to come home. And then this guy is going to go get that piano, and he's going to go set it up in your house. I said, okay, well, whatever, Yeah. I didn't even think of it. I was probably too high to even know any better anyway. So, yeah, And I said, are you sure about this? He goes, yeah, this is great. Just don't worry about it. So we're at this Grammy Award show, and, I'm half lit up. I mean, we're all lit up because we didn't win. So they serve you that $3,000 bottle of champagne back there. So you know how it goes. But we were getting a little looped, and I said to Paul, I said, I think I'm going to leave now. And he goes, you're probably not going to go anywhere, man. You're staying at our house tonight. I said, okay, well, whatever. And I grabbed went to the bathroom, and I got the valet dude, got my car. only in LA can you find a traffic jam at 3:00 in the morning. So thank God I did find one, because I probably had no business even being a passenger, much less driving a car.
Yeah.
And I drove it to San Diego from LA, and it took 3 hours.
Yeah.
At that hour of the day. And by then I was sort of semi straightened up again. And I walked into my house, and here was this grand piano, and it had all this recording gear set up around it. And I was like, what the hell is all this? And it had a note on the piano, and it said, if you play this piano, push this button. And it had a button that was like on a tape. It was like reel to reel.
Yeah.
And so, I didn't know what to even think about. I was like, what do these dudes see that I don't see, right? And so I was thinking, I need another drink now. So I go get it. I go get a drink, and I'm cruising around in my socks and my underwear and my own pad, and I'm walking around strangely looking at this piano like it's some kind of foreign element in my house. I finally sit down at it, and I sit this glass up on the piano, and I kind of tinker around a little bit with the keys, and then after I do that, I'm like, all of a sudden I go off on this 20-minute piece of music like I've been playing the piano for 200 years.
Wow.
And I'm like, what the hell? And I mean, I did manage to push the button too.
Yeah.
And so he said, I called him the next day, and after 30 minutes of his rant, because I drove drunk, he said, well, what did you do? Did you push the button like I told you to? And I said, I did. And he goes, well, where's the tape at on the machine? And I said, well, it's on the left reel. And he talked me through rewinding it, because I'm really lame that way. I mean, even till this day, I have to have somebody come over and hook up my stuff. And he says, so he goes, now I want you to push these two buttons together, and so it's going to record now onto a cassette. He said, I want you to bring that up to me. And I said, all right, well, I can't do it today though, dude. I promised my mom I'd take her out to lunch, back to mom. So I go to my mom's house with this tape. And I asked her, I didn't tell her anything about what it was. I just said, hey, listen to this music and tell me what you think about it. And she goes off on this thing about Franz Liszt. And I'm like, who the heck is Franz Liszt? I'm thinking, it's like a member of the Doors or what? Who's that?
Yeah.
I had no idea. And then I started querying, like, what makes you the expert on music anyway? And then she starts to tell me this story. She says, she goes in her room and she brings out this box of all this stuff, and she's got pictures of her at Madison Square Gardens. And I'm like, what the heck is this? She's in formal gown. She's got pictures of her with her family, the Rodgers and Hart songwriting team. Her family.
Okay.
They're sitting at the piano and they're doing whatever. And I'm saying, like, well, what is this? She goes, so remember, I have to tell you that your dad, when your dad and I met, we got pregnant before we were married. And back in 1952, that was a problem.
Yeah.
A big problem. So they got forced into getting married. And she goes, I was going to be a concert pianist, and I had a scholarship to Juilliard. And all that got ruined because of this thing. And I said, oh, so like that's my fault?
Yeah.
And I was really kind of angry at the moment, because I was like, I'm 27 years old now. I'm like, none of our family even knew she ever played piano.
Wow.
Yeah, so she hit it. So anyway, she's listening to this tape, and she says, I'm going to give you this tape here. I just had it recently done. It was something that she did back in 1955. It was like a psychic reading.
Mm-hmm.
And she transferred it into a cassette tape. And she said, you can put this in your car. And I'm sure when you're done with it, you'll call me and go like, what the hell? And I was like, okay. So I did. I stuck it in my car after lunch, and I was on my way up to I was going to drive to LA to bring that tape, because I got to bring that cassette tape back to Paul Rogers, And so I'm listening to this reading, and this reading's going to tell her everything about what's going to happen in her life, and blah, 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 blah. And I'm comparing it to things that did happen in her life. And all of a sudden she gets on and she says, this is going to be the last piece of music that I ever write in this lifetime. It's note for note what I played the night before.
Wow.
And the freaking lady, and in the reading, the lady's telling her that when God sees fit he will transfer your gift to one of your children. And
Wow.
I met my best friend that way, because when I heard that, I slammed into the trunk of his car,
Oh my God.
and then we became friends,
You still got the piano?
I do have the piano.
Wow.
You still got it after all these years?
Yeah. And, and then I also have my Yamaha Bryant. So, I mean,
Yeah.
at the end of the day, though, when I took it up to Paul, he was like, dude, he goes, this is crazy. He goes, you need to be paying attention to this. And I said, about what? And he said, this is going to be a war for you. It's going to be either women or music. You're not going to get both in this lifetime. And I'm like,
it's a difficult thing to do, but
yeah. Well, and so I started to program my brain about, that concept that I would meet these women and I'd go out with them and I'd tell them all the time, you're never going to be my first love. So don't even go there.
Yeah, I've had to say that many times over. Right. Ryan, you got a question?
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. That was a great story. And, it all happened because you ran into me and my ex-girlfriend on the streets of LA, walking her like a dog collar. Pretty crazy. No, actually, I loved your talk about oneness and writing a song and things like that. So did that help? What did that inspire you to become part of I read you were part of the Academy of Music Performing Arts in your town in Utah. Did that come about just because it seemed like you wanted to help the youth?
Well, yeah, I've always been a believer that it's wrong to gather knowledge on this planet and not share it with kids.
That's right.
Like if we were to return to our Creator, having gained all of this knowledge, knowing that we were empowered by his, most significant weapon called music, and didn't share any of that with the youth, I think there would be an accounting that would be pretty wrathful to me.
Yeah.
Even as loving as God is, I think he would hold me accountable in that way, in some huge way. Because, even all scripture tells you, feed my children. It's not like feed Skyler's children or feed your children or feed my children. He said, feed them all.
That's right.
So, I feel that when I met Skyler, I think we were actually starting MuzArt, and he was working on Music Can Save the World. And at the end of the day, people's paths cross at certain times, but they're not necessarily our time. It's we're not ready for it. And God comes along and says, hey, I'm going to introduce you guys, and you guys got to figure it out from here.
Yeah.
But it may not be like our time is not his. We've all learned that now that we're older. We've all learned that, I could have done that 20 years ago. Well, maybe not, because you wouldn't be ready to receive it 20 years ago. So, we started with MuzArt, and Ken and I started MuzArt because he was like, I don't know about you, man. You're killing me. And I said, what is that? He goes, you come in here with these stories about God and how God tells you this, that, and the other. And like, you're not happy with We Are the World and Hands Across. I said, dude, those are your deals. I just was there. Those are your gigs. You get the credit for that. I just showed up and did the work. I raised you some money, and I did some contract negotiation, but that was your brainstorm. Okay. So God, put me on your journey with you so I could learn how to do what he wants me to do at this point. And so he agreed that he would start it up with me. And then we did that big event, and at the, of all the places, the LDS Mormon Conference Center, we took that place over for 3 days. And we brought in the Trans-Siberian Orchestra. We brought in stuff that was just never even heard of in that building, and fired it up with an orchestrated version of Kashmir from Led Zeppelin. And it was an amazing experience. And the goal was to, put music and arts back in school. Boy, did I get a wake-up call. I got a serious wake-up call on that project, because I thought, what? And Ken just sat there, and he's just very patient, and he said, making a difference in the world doesn't necessarily include transforming the United States' education system. I said, while I agree that that's a monumental task, I I also remember hearing you say that it's just as easy to do the impossible. It can be done, but you have to believe in it. And he goes, yeah, he said, but you have to understand there's a machine out there, a big machine that wants to dumb down the American kids.
Yeah.
I was like, really? He goes, yeah, come on, man. He goes, just as well as I do that when children study music, everything goes well. Not everything in the world, but their reading comprehension is better, their test scores are better, all these wonderful statistics. We all know that.
Cool. Yeah.
We know that, but yet the leaders don't do it. They don't protect those types of educational systems for.
Yeah, no. Then the politicians neither, man. When we talk about music, that's never in the budget.
Right. Exactly.
They don't play music, so they don't care that much. He's talking about Ken Cregan.
So Ken is the ultimate manager of the year, at every level, managing Kenny Rogers, Lionel Richie, some big names in the business, and the creator of We Are the World, creator of Hands Across America, just an amazing person. Absolutely. Yeah. For me, I was very fortunate to even have what I call a small sliver of life with a man that amazing. I mean,
powerful. Yeah.
Yeah. I remember one day Kenny Rogers calling into his office and we were sitting down and he shot the crap at, and he was just riding Ken, just giving him a hard time about, I gave you this guy's name and told you to call him. I was out on the golf course and blah, 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 blah. And he says you never called him. And he was just really ranting and carrying on. And I mean, it was totally disrespectful, We've all been in that spot, we get it. But, and Ken just sat there and took it all in. And he said, are you done now? He said, I am. He said, I know that you think the whole world is about you. And I know that you don't like me to tell you this when I tell you that we have 10 artists in here right now that we're managing. And in case you're interested, 8 of those 10 artists are the top selling artists in Walmart. That should tell you something about what we do here.
Okay.
He said, but, honestly, I write down everything so I don't forget. And I honestly forgot to write that down. I'll handle it as soon as we get off this call.
Wow.
And, I was still in the rough during that span of time. I was kind of coming up the pike and I was the New York Brooklyn boy. They would say, man, you talk shit like that to me, I'll knock you out kind of thing. I'm like, why are you taking this kind of disrespect? And I never forget his response was, you never, ever not tell the truth to an artist. And I said,
how about that?
And I said, why do you say that? He said, you always need, first of all, he said, when you're dealing with an artist, you're dealing with a very sensitive, creative being. Know that for beginners. Second of all, if you violate that creative being's sense of trust, you'll never get it back. Okay. So the relationship between management and creative beings has to always be an open flow. And that open flow always has to come with truth and light. It can't have, you can always disagree and do whatever, but you can't lie to each other.
Right.
And if you do, it's over.
Yeah, you're right. Tom, you got another question before we get out of here?
Yeah, just sort of, I mean, as we touched on there, the MuzArt kind of foundation you've got there, was it difficult to be a company that was kind of highlighting and very sort of centered on conscious music? Was that a difficult thing to kind of put out there and get people on board with, or do you find that was something that people actually well received, or was it something that you had to kind of push, or how did that work for you?
Well, all good things don't come easily. And whenever, that's one thing people ask me all the time, what would you do to solve problems in the world? And I said, I'd go for a common cause instead of talking about all this crap that we don't do well and we don't have well and that we don't need and blah, blah, blah. I'd look for the common cause. Like, what's the common cause we all have? What is that? And people go, well, I don't know. What is it? I said, 98% of people on the planet have children. That would be a good common cause, in my opinion. Instead of talking about the trash in the world, how about we talk about what our kids need? And how about we work towards what our kids need? And I don't care if you're a doctor, if you're a lawyer, if you're a musician, or if you're a criminal that's in jail serving, jail time for murder. If you have a child, you want something better for that child than you had.
That's right.
All of us are human. That's just the way we are.
Yeah.
So it was difficult to make people understand that we could fight through it and we could improve the situation, but it was for our kids. Mm. And it didn't matter. I mean, I grew up in Brooklyn, man. Everybody on my street knew everybody and everybody took care of everybody. And, 3 doors down, they knew my name and they knew if I was doing something I shouldn't be doing, they'd come out there and grab me myself. They didn't wait for my dad. They just come and take care of it, so that we need to get back to that we kind of thing and get away from this I thing.
That's right.
We got to come back to we and take care of each other.
There's no I in team.
There, I love that phrase.
Ryan, you got one more for you?
Yeah, I'll be real quick. So I've spent my entire career in marketing, but I'm also a creative, and just reading your accolades in sales, marketing, promotion is amazing. Do you have any advice for the younger generation coming up that maybe want to go into marketing, and I guess particularly in the music industry? Do you have any advice, since the technology, and you were saying TikTok and social media? But I'm interested to hear what your thoughts on something coming up in the industry these days.
I would say respect your craft. You spend, guys like me, I'm 70 now, and I bet I spent 60 years of my life trying to figure out what the heck my gift was, when all along, I should have known it at 27 years old. If you have a gift of communication, be it in marketing or music or arts or whatever, respect it, because I believe that God will take it away from you if you don't use it. I mean, right. I know a lot of musicians that have gifts that are never heard, because they don't respect it. They don't believe it. They don't believe in themselves.
That's right.
I was one of those for 27 years, at 27 years old till now. I didn't realize that, that was really part of my gift, was writing. I had no clue, and then all of a sudden I've got songs that have been, in the top 5, in the top 3, in the last 5 years of my life. And I'm like, oh, well, I guess I could have been done doing that at 27, but
yeah, sure. Yeah.
Wasn't ready for it at that time, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I get people on here because I want to get your endorsement for Music for Global Change.
Absolutely.
Because it's, there's never been, even at your label or all other labels, there's never been a social conscious music genre.
That's right.
And so that's what the three of us right here are creating a genre for it. Maybe some labels for it, radio stations and artists and producers, right? Because I want to start doing festivals around great social conscious music writers and artists that's coming up. And I think that'll catch on, power to the peaceful, right?
Yep, absolutely.
I think it'll catch on. And it's going to be almost like a Motown kind of thing, but not Motown music. It's going to be where we do one huge band that plays behind the artist. So the artist comes out, do 4 or 5 tunes. The next artist comes out, do 4 or 5 tunes, right?
Yep.
So they ain't all that breaking down stuff, none of that, But if you look at the Funk Brothers for Berry Gordy, that was one band that played behind the Supremes, Marvin Gaye, Stevie Wonder. There's one band. And so I like to do that, right? Yep. and I got some people that's interested in kind of putting up some money for it, but I'm gonna have I've been doing a lot of duets with different artists from different countries. And I'm going to have them come out, right? Denmark and,
right.
Ghana. And you bring them out there. We do 4 songs and I do 1 with them and they do 3 of their own side. So we're going to make it like a huge thing, right? And then that way I can get other people involved in it, because I found out there's 192 million social conscious songs.
Yeah.
Well, if there's 192 million social conscious songs, there's 5 billion love songs. I've been doing research. So,
Right.
but it's social conscious. If 192 people have written songs like that, there's definitely an audience for it. We just need the platform so people can come to it.
Right.
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 And then we fuse MuzArt and the kids coming up, and we train them to write lyrics that heal, educate, and solve problems, right? Around beautiful instruments, could be all kind of instruments.
Yep.
And we go get artists from different countries, top artists from each country to write these kind of songs. And I think it'll catch on.
I totally agree. I think we're ready.
Oh yeah.
We're socially ready for something conscious to take us over.
That's right.
Does that make sense?
Brother, listen, I'm going to let's link up on Skype again and try to put an idea around what you're doing around that tune, right?
Yeah, that'd be great.
I got a friend of mine that just was on before you, Sylvester Burks. He can play anything. But
why do I know that name?
What? Sylvester Burks?
Yeah.
Because he plays with all the biggest gospel artists.
Really?
He's the baddest keyboard player for everybody, all the biggest gospel artists.
That's
and
awesome.
I've written a lot of songs with him, stuff like that. But I'm going to introduce you because you could just start singing and Sylvester know where you're going.
You're right. No, exactly. You gotta love that kind of gift.
He's that kind of guy, So, and then I just tell him I'm gonna put a reggae field and I kind of sing him stuff, and he'll start creating it and take your lyrics and I put a melody on it, and we off and running, right?
Right. Exactly. Well, it's a great way to start.
Ken, I love you, brother. Thank you for taking the time and your privilege to come on the show.
You betcha, man. Thanks for having me.
That's what it's about. So namaste, my brother. Namaste.
You too, my friend.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thanks
Love
for
you
joining
guys.
us.
Take care.
Music can save the world. Music can save the world. If we all get together, music can save the world. Yeah. Music can save the world. Music can save the world. If we all come together, music can save the world. There's an urgency facing our humanity.
Thank you so much for watching. To stay up to date, please click subscribe and hit the bell. You can also join our group on Facebook and find us on LinkedIn and Instagram.